All right, we are ready to go. The Florida Daily Show. And yes, it was one of our guests who's going to join us in a couple of moments. We were talking before we went on the air. Tiara, is that what it is, Lindsay?
It's a headband. It is a headband. Have you never seen a headband, Ed?
I do, but usually I see that like when they're going to some concert or going to Disney. I'm you know, the ears popped out and stuff like that. Are you one of those moms that when you guys go to Disney, you actually get in costume like the kids?
No, but I do have mini ears. I have gold mini ears, but no, I do not dress up.
So just a reminder, everybody, they can catch the radio show Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m., our flagship station, Talk Radio WBOB. But it's good to have everybody with us today. I got some fun stuff. I want to get to a lot of polls of what's happening. A lot of voters in Florida feel about what's happening with the war in Iran. It seems that even the libertarians, I know this may not fit some of you all's political wheelhouse, but even some of the libertarians that are being polled are on board with the president. I mean, I'm still trying to find out this no regime change crowd, wherever these people were.
Shocked.
Well, I'll get to. I mean, now some people will say we don't know if we buy into it. I just play the polls. It's just a snapshot what it is. So we'll get into all of this. Then you've got House Speaker Mike Johnson, who's out there telling Brett Baier on Fox News, hey, man, we're going to win. We're going to increase our House majority. As much as I would probably like to see that, I'm not convinced. I know it's now we're going into April now. I'm not convinced that that's really going to happen. So, Lindsay, I understand what a poll is. It's just pretty much an indicator of what's going on right now. Doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing 6 months down the road.
Right. And well, it's a snapshot. I don't really trust all the polls. I trust some.
Right.
I don't know. That just seems weird to me that Mike Johnson would say that. But also at the same time, that's his job to say that. That's his job.
He's supposed to say that.
Right.
So anyway.
Right.
So we're going to get into a lot of this. So let me jump right into it. And two of these guys come on with me religiously every week, sometimes once or twice a week because they've earned it. Ed Moore, who's the president emeritus in the Independent College Universities in Florida, great columnist at floridadaily.com, sat on many. Don't do too much there, Ed. We got to see your face, dude.
I'm fading. My camera was slipping. I'm sorry.
It's flipping. Make sure the camera's slipping and not you. Yeah. Ed, if they can't see the face, then the ladies won't watch. Okay. But Dr. Ed Moore, who sat on many boards with from Governor DeSantis' office, and then my other good friend who comes on all the time with us, Tom Gaydens, who follows a lot of the economics as well, groups with Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse, and that of course, of FreedomWorks. So let me play these first clip here. Here was the latest. I want to play some polling of what's happening on the overall. I get to the issue with Iran. Here was Fox News' Jackie Heinrich, where the president is underwater in almost every key demographic issue, and almost key issue along with the demographics, dealing with the economy and inflation.
He is taking a hit. New Fox polls show 41% approve of the job he's doing. That's down 2 points from a month ago and 8 points from a year ago.
Voters are giving Trump negative marks on the economy. His approval now at 34%, down 6 points from January. On inflation, only 28% approve. Overall, 75% of voters believe the economy is in bad shape, and that number moved 5 points in the wrong direction since the start of the year.
You know, Ed, here's an interesting thing. We're going to get to some of these. I'll start with you first. Numbers can change. I get that. I know when I post certain things on a poll or we talk about it, a lot of people are like, well, fake news. Mine's actually doing better with inflation. And I understand that. But the overall is what we're talking about. Most people don't feel the positive vibe. Certainly probably not going to feel it with gasoline prices going up. We'll get into all this. I know it's March going into April. It's an early shot here that you can sit back and say, well, they're not going to do well. Then the Republicans may do well. We'll get into that coming up in a few moments. But the president's numbers, is there a messaging problem here, Ed, or is it just it doesn't matter what the messaging problem is? People don't feel the positiveness like they were told that they were going to.
No, it's what's occurred in our country, I'd say in the last 6 major elections. Whatever the problems are with the predecessor, whose party loses, they hand off the ball to you, and as soon as you take the ball and start running with it, everything is your problem. Everything is your fault. You don't give anybody any time frame. If they put changes in that are going to make it worse for a little while, no pain, no gain really works when it comes to the economy. You get blamed. Everything is your fault from day one. Right. And that's a lot what I'm thinking. What reporters don't do and what they never do in that is do a compare and contrast. What did all the other presidents, what happened to them when they came into office?
Sure.
Were they at 40% or were they at 60? No, they're at 40. you start out at 40 and you kind of stay there unless you do something spectacular.
But, to be consistent, Tom, the president's numbers have always been consistent to the low to mid 40s at time. On Biden's, it was way down. I know what Ed says, we can always compare, but I have to look at what's going on right now. And if I wanted to sit back and say a positive message, I think the White House really needs to focus on is still the issue of immigration. I think they went on that issue. I think they went on the issue of crime. They were winning the issue of low gasoline prices. We talked about this on this show. And could it go back that route? I think if it does, I think that will benefit and could benefit the Republicans to say, hey, we've got gasoline prices lower than what we originally thought, hypothetically. Who knows what we can maybe get the cost of living under control as well. But I think the president still gets high marks on a lot of the things. But I've heard Republicans not talk about the success of the immigration, the success of crime, and the deportations. I wish if you were going to talk about a brand that work inside the overall scheme of things, that to me would work. I don't hear much coming from the White House.
So it is messaging. It boils down to messaging. But here's the thing. Bill Bennett used to say, and he's absolutely right, you're either in politics, you're either on offense or you're on defense. And unfortunately, the president's been on defense for several months now, beginning with the Minneapolis issue, and it just proceeded. He handled that horribly. In fact, I think most people look at that he retreated out of that Minneapolis situation, so it looks bad. The optics were bad. And then we go into this Iranian war situation. And at first, the thought was we were going to do a regime change. And then the president backpedaled on that and spoke softly on that, hasn't even mentioned regime change. But I will tell you, I was at CPAC this weekend, and there were probably, it was the lowest attended CPAC I've ever been to. However, the Crown Prince from Iran, in absentia, was there to speak yesterday. And there were more than 1,000 Iranian Americans who showed up for his speech, and they want regime change. So I think here's a real reality. Winning, as the president always acknowledges, is what he's all about. That's what he focuses on. If he gets a few wins down here, if we then do get those boots on the ground, which no one wants, that's the negative. But if it results in a regime change, that will be a huge win for him. And he's been focusing on foreign policy, not as much domestic policy, if you notice, because it's easier because of the stalemate. You mentioned Mike Johnson in Congress.
Tom, why do you think the level CPAC has always invited me every year? They're just cheap. I'm going to be totally honest with you. They wouldn't buy me a cup of coffee. I said, they wanted all these thousands of free publicity. I said, dude, you won't even put me out for a night. Okay. And I said, no flipping way. Why do you think the numbers are lower now with CPAC?
Well, I think number one is because they moved it back to Dallas for this year, and that was just a bad location.
Really?
I think.
Why would they moved it to Dallas? It was always in DC.
Yeah.
So it's cheaper. So back to Ed's point, it's the contracts, the union contracts you have to absorb with all the things in DC. It's a lot cheaper to manufacture this event somewhere outside of the Beltway. But Ed, to your point, I think one of the reasons is this 42-day TSA attack and ICE attack by the leftists and the Democrats tamped down the amount of people who showed up, because people were not willing to wait in that Atlanta traffic, the Houston traffic, you name it, up at these TSA checkpoints. But a lot of the attendance was down, and I think this is partially why. There were not the big names at this event. We didn't have a large group of senators and Congress members. It was a really low-key event. It was a fun event, but it was low-key.
Wow.
Ed, if I can jump in here, Ed Dean, the other Ed wanted to know, what do you think it's going to take to swing have the pendulum swing back to a Republican victory, if at all possible, in November?
Cuba falling. To me, that would be if Cuba fell.
Oh, wow.
Anytime in the next 60 days, huge major win, huge change after 70 years, however many years it's been, almost my entire lifetime.
Wait. You think, wait. In
That's
Florida,
not what I thought you were going to say.
Nationwide, you think Cuba, which would be great, you think Cuba going back to more freestyle democracy, a free market, you think that would guarantee the Republicans a win?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they need a big win, something big, something that changes the discussion. If you watch network news every week, every 3 days, it's a whole new topic, some other topic. And the topics consistently have been the last 3-4 weeks, negative Trump, bad for Trump.
Well, that's always happening.
But what changes that is good things happening. Something big like Cuba changing would change the whole discussion for weeks on end.
Hey, You know how all this could pay for itself, Lindsay?
What?
Ed, you think I'm making this up? I had this conversation with Ed. I think we had it on the radio show. Everybody is still into these 56, 57 Chevys. All those old cars sitting in Cuba, that would clean up their debt and their growth.
Oh, huge.
All the vintage cars.
Ed, am I right or wrong?
I'd buy 5 of them. Okay, I mean, 57 Bel Air. You betcha.
Oh yeah.
It'd be gazillionaires down there. But Ed, question for you. Do you really believe that would be, I mean, obviously there's a lot of Cuban Americans in the state of Florida, but do you think that's gonna really swing the pendulum over on the West Coast, like California or even Washington State?
If you change the discussion, that's the dynamics of the discussion. That's what's big. And I used Cuba as an example. Something big like that changes everything going on. Plus, economically, all those markets reopening. I mean, that would be a huge deal.
All right. Let's get to Iran and how a lot of voters perceive it here in the state of Florida. Karl Rove, Wall Street Journal. This might be surprising to a lot, Tom Gatens. I have been saying consistently here on this show, I've been saying it consistently on my radio talk show, you are not splitting the MAGA base. I know I get told by a lot of podcasters I'm wrong. You're not splitting the MAGA base on the situation with Iran. So listen to Karl Rove from the Wall Street Journal. Latest poll numbers that even the GOP MAGA, the GOP conservatives, the GOP moderates, and even GOP-leaning libertarians, believe it or not, as much as I think the libertarians were probably a little bit less intuitive to support the White House on bombing and the war in Iran. But overall, they still gave the president thumbs up. Here's the clip.
In a new survey from the Vandenberg Coalition of Self-Identified Trump Voters, the people who are most likely to be supportive of the president's agenda and actions are people who are self-identified MAGA conservatives, followed by moderate Republicans, self-identified traditional conservatives, and the least supportive were self-identified libertarians. But even they gave a majority of support.
They gave a majority support even among the libertarians, which I see a lot of posts, Tom Gatens, on Facebook, which aren't very appreciative. The no regime change, no new wars. They still overall gave the president a thumbs up.
Well, so this is more of that tribal mentality, and I think it shows itself really clearly here. Is that, listen, the White House has been under attack for a lot of things, and this is where they're able to be on the attack. And people on the conservative side, their MAGA base, the Republican Party in general, they want to see the president on the offensive. That's when he is the strongest. That's when he's most effective. And right now, and Ed's exactly right, the success we had in Venezuela, the success it looks like we're about to have in Cuba, and it looks like, it's just a matter of time, the success in Iran, but then we have to decide, is it going to be regime change or is it just the dismantling of their missile and a nuke program? I don't think that's enough. And I think that would be an absolute disaster. It'd be analogous to the Minneapolis failure by the president and the administration. But if they can win on these 3 issues, on foreign policy, coupled with the other 7 wars that he helped bring close to, it demonstrates this amazing legacy of his presidency. And that's something that all the candidates can trumpet. That's what all conservatives can then rally around and support. So it's about positive messaging. If you have something you can message positively, it lifts the boat. It's kind of like that economic principle Kennedy talked about.
Right. But Lindsay, it's quite interesting because I think Lindsay probably would fall into one of these areas where, you've got a lot of those, even the podcasters say, hey, listen, a poll is a poll, but if you want to see what's going on daily, why don't you read social media, whether it's X, Instagram, Facebook, where a lot of those, Lindsay, we hear from a lot of people, no, I don't buy into the polls. Read what's going on Facebook, or they say a lot of conservatives just are not happy with what's going on in Iran. I see it. I think that the Republican Party and the MAGA crowd is kind of split. I really do on this issue, because I think some of them are what we're going to trust Trump. We voted for him. We put him in office. And others are saying, hey, this is not what you said that you were going to do for the last decade when you were running for president, when you became president the first time around in 2016, when you campaigned for the 2020 election and arguably won that too. And then the same thing when in 2024. So I think there's some people, myself included, I feel a little bait and switch there. I'm still supporting our president, obviously, but I do feel like that there's some of that that just kind of percolating in the atmosphere. Let me jump around here. Tom, let me go back to you real quick. Our good friend, he fills in for me a lot of times, but our legal commentator, Ron Davis, we always love hearing a bunch of, especially you guys that come on with this. Give us a timeline. I may kick the can down the road a little bit. I'll explain why. When do you think gasoline prices need to come down where they don't hurt? Now, I like to see it go back to pre-war, where they don't hurt the Republicans. What's the timeline, Tom?
I would say May 15th to July 1st. And if it doesn't come down by then, it's going to be disastrous for the Republicans during the midterms.
Edmore, I may have a little bit of difference, but Tom may have me on this one. But go ahead, Ed. What do you think?
I would give him till end of July.
That's what I was going with. Now, Tom, I'm normally I would agree with you, but I understand that traveling holidays, more people traveling around in July. I get that. End of July. That's why I was saying I would kick the can down the road where things could turn around, Tom. But you think by July 1st. Why do you think by then, but not like by September?
Here's why. This is the semi-quincentennial on July 4th.
Right.
All the media attention is going to be this positive pro-America stuff. If that is replaced, all this good energy is replaced with negative energy about gas prices. Understand the media wants to move on that one narrative, that anti-Trump narrative, that the affordability is not solving, that the gas prices aren't going down, and they're gonna just deposit everything they can about this negative news, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to replacing that 250th anniversary with all the negative gas price news.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Question. So, I mean, I think people just in general have a short memory, myself included. I forget what happened yesterday. However, yep. I do agree, Ed Moore, as an interesting point, that you think it's through like essentially the end of July. The school year starts in August. Usually for most school districts, it's by mid-August that kids are back in school. As a parent, myself, once school starts, I forget about everything that's happened before because we're like in the groove. So do you think that has an effect on it as well?
Yeah, I do. Two things I think need to happen in this. And if both things go positively, it changes the whole discussion. TSA lines going away and airline travel getting back to normal, and gasoline, when you go and you're standing there in your car and you're looking at the pump, $2 and anything, not $3.
Right.
Okay. If it's $2 and something, people are going, wow, we're back to normal again. And if you can go fly somewhere, if you could have gone to Dallas and flying from Tallahassee to Dallas with no problem, people are going to be happy. Those are the stories that are on the nightly news.
I agree with you.
That's what people are seeing all the time.
Yeah, the affordability issue. Here we go. This was House Speaker Mike Johnson with Brett Baer. He has to be, I get it. He's very optimistic. He thinks that the GOP base will grow and they'll keep the voters that they won in the Trump coalition in 2024.
Very bullish about November, very bullish about the midterms.
Even right now,
Absolutely.
Even looking at everything that's coming up.
Absolutely right. It summarizes us having a great record to run on. Promises made, promises kept. The big, beautiful bill, Working Families Tax Cut, is going to be working for middle and lower class earners, and they'll feel the effects of that and know they made the right decision because we had a big demographic shift in 2024, and I think we hold those voters. We got better candidates. We have more funding right now. We have a president who is running like he is on the ballot, and he is out doing rallies around the country and rallying the base. We're going to have a midterm convention for the first time in history in September, right before early voting, to parade all of these stars and our great record across the stage. I feel very good about this. I believe we're going to defy history and grow the Republican majority in the House.
Well, Ed Moore, he's got to say that. I get it.
Yeah, he absolutely has to say that. But there's some kernels of truth in what he says, but it all depends on smaller things, kitchen table kind of stuff like we're talking about. Not everybody travels, not everybody goes through TSA, but they see it on the news. They see this jammed up and everything's shutting down and people can't get to vacations. We're having school years coming to an end and people are going on vacations. If they got to stand in line, they're going to be mad. If they got to pay $3.80 a gallon, they're going to be mad.
Right.
That's what they got to fix. And they got to get somebody out there giving positive messages that resonate with the people. I would suggest keeping Marco Rubio here for a little bit. Let him go around the country talking about things going on in the world instead of him he's doing amazing things, but he's gone. Nobody sees it happening.
Yeah, he's a good front. I will admit he's a good face. Tom, these timelines, they're subject to change and move things around, and I get all of that. When it comes to the TSA, yes, I blame a lot on the Democrats. I mean, to be fair, if Republicans would have passed a budget before October of last year, we wouldn't be in this position. I don't think people are thinking that. That's because you and I, Ed, and then, of course, Lindsay, we all fall inside baseball. But this is really a lot put on the Democrats. We've played the clips. They don't want to fund anything. They want to defund the police, which is ICE. They want to tear it down. They make it more politically, quote, correct, be more sensitive to people. But I don't think people follow that. Is it one of these that if it still continues to linger, I mean, I remember arguments I used to hear as a boy, you know, back in the 1990s, they blamed all the shutdowns that even months later into the elections of 1996 of all the gains the Republicans won in 94. They didn't blame it on Clinton. They blame it on the Republicans. Does it really, I mean, even if this thing ends in April or May, do you think voters are still going to be forgiving or unforgiving going in November about the TSA shutdowns? And do you honestly think they're going to blame Republicans or Democrats on that issue?
I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's messaging again. The RNC has roughly $19 million on hand, and the Democrats have about $16 million on hand. So the reality is, if we produce an effective message and send that out there on a regular basis, reinforcing this in people's minds, we can be successful. If we do what the Republican Party typically does, is hold that money up wait till too late to spend it effectively, then it'll be difficult. Because remember, we're fighting a historical wave, and the historical wave is this midterm election favors the party outside of power. And with that reality in place, you need to be proactive today. You need to start championing your winnings right now. You need to start echoing the good stuff. And it has to start early, because a lot of that space is going to be absorbed up. And remember, people don't pay attention to the news in the summer. So you need to build up that reservoir of information. Lindsay, you're right. People forget things, but you still have to build up that reservoir of good feeling before the summer hits, so that when you come out of the summer, you have momentum on the roll. And by then we'll have a lot of things that we can champ about, but we need to be effectively messaging.
So to a lot of people, Lindsay, if you were asked, name what the GOP has done, even all the lawyer readers of Florida Daily, even the lawyer listeners of the radio show, okay, big, beautiful bill, a lot of executive orders the president has done, and I support a lot of that, but he's got to codify them. He's got to make it law. Listen to the Fox Business Network, Maria Bartiromo saying, hey, listen, Republicans own everything, and yet it still acts like Democrats are winning. Listen to the clip.
Some people out there look at this situation and they don't understand. They know that the Republicans are in charge. You are running the House. You are running the Senate. You are running the White House. And yet we have these fights, and it's obvious that you can't get on the same page. And it seems like Democrats are still winning.
You know, it's like, Lindsay, you can't win. If you don't do enough on Epstein, you suck. If you do too much at Epstein, you're not focusing on the issues. Pam Bondi, I see more people on my Facebook going, where are the arrests? I'm like, where are the lower prices? I mean, why are we more concerned about arrest? I see more people caring about Jim Comey arrest and everything else. I get all of that. There's an old adage, walk and chew gum. Evidently, they can't do both. They seem like they can only walk, but they can't chew gum at the same time, Lindsay.
Yes, and just have this victim mentality. This, oh my gosh, well, we don't own the media. Well, we have all the media we want in the world. It's called the internet. It's called X is free now. I mean, I mean, Trump has truth. I mean, I don't understand, but I do think that there's a lot of people, they're scared to actually stand up for what's right and what's true because of whatever, the lobbyists that they've taken money from or whatever. There could be a zillion different reasons. However, I think at this stage in the game, we don't have time to sit there and just think, okay, well, it's going to be the next generation. No, we need to save the country now, and we can't be afraid and live in fear. We have to govern and have statesmen actually step up to the plate and do something.
Yeah, Tom, how do you, it's kind of an interesting conversation. I want to see people in handcuffs. I want to see arrests. How come Kash Patel or Pam Bondi and blah, blah. Like, how do you kind of counter that attitude on that one where to them, it's not so much the economy. Go figure. We want to see somebody walk out in handcuffs, Tom, consent coming from the MAGA world.
Lindsay's right. These adults, supposed adults, should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, but they don't. In fact, look at the SAVE Act. If Thune has had the cojones to do what he should have done, this should have been over long ago, and we should have been past this fight. The same thing to your point about the budget. If the Republicans had passed the budget, we wouldn't have these problems right now. So the reality is it's horrible leadership by Thune. If we had Rick Scott as the head of the Senate rather than Thune, we'd be far further down this football field. But ultimately speaking, and here's where the rubber meets the road, it's the phrase out about those arrests. people feel that were so much egregious violations of the law and the Constitution that without these arrests, if the Democrats take over again, remember Lindsey Graham said, God forbid they ever gain power again. And if they do gain power, they're coming after us more effectively than they did last time because they were never held to account. We have to hold them to account, and we still need to do the other things.
But Ed Moore, as much as Tom is accurate, you can blame Thune, Speaker Johnson. I mean, really, I don't think I can name 5 things on one hand they've really gotten things done. Maybe a couple of. Is the president is very upfront using the bully pulpit. Hey, you vote against the SAVE Act or blah blah blah. I'm coming after you. I'll go after Rand Paul, Tom Massey. I've always said this here, Ed Moore. If the president were to use the bully pulpit on getting things like more of the whole Biden agenda revamped, going back, and I love the executive orders. I mean, we talk about this religiously, but the executive orders will change when, and it will happen when a Democrat gets back into office, screw things up. If we can make these things as law, instead of trying to rely on the Supreme Court, just get these things done, they would stick around for years. It was kind of like the Trump first presidency, Ed Moore, where, I mean, as bad as Mitch McConnell was, it was 51% got these judges passed. And now you can see probably sometimes a better lasting event of when it comes to non-judicial, what's the word? Judicial activity, where they want to go against you because they don't like the party you're in. I think if the president were to use the bully pulpit to say, hey, GOP, I've got a list to get things done. You guys ain't doing it. But the White House needs to be in front of this as well. And they haven't.
Yeah, if he would do a clear and coherent bully pulpit, he tends to, Kamala Harris had the word salad. Trump tends to have a word smorgasbord. I mean, it's just so much going on. And I'm going to talk about this today. And then he talks about everything else but what he sits down to talk about. That gets the voters all going, I don't know what's going on there. You made the point, Ed, if you go on social media and you look and you see the comments that people make on these things, the ignorance in the American public about how DC runs is astounding. All you see over and over again, well, the Republicans control all 3 branches, and they don't understand how the process works, and nobody is explaining it to them as to why none of this is working.
Ed, I post a lot on Facebook, and
I enjoy it.
I'm glad, and Tom, a lot of it's for shtick. I have a good time, and I'll give you an example. And sometimes the beef was within my own party because the Democrats are out there. I don't even argue with leftists anymore because it's just, if they could have a viable argument by saying, Ed, our party could do better on spending, like going back to the Clinton days, Ed Moore, guess what? We could have a great conversation. But most of the time I'm arguing with some of my MAGA friends because I'm more conservative than the MAGA people. And for example, I'll give you one where if inflation were to drop by 0.1%, things are working good. But when the inflation prices go up by 0.7% higher, it's only 0.7. Yeah, but it's still 3.1% higher this year than it was last year. So that's how I look at it as well. So I just, Tom Gaines, let me play for you one more clip. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, whether he may run or not, that's another story we'll talk about. But was with, what is it, Ed Moore? The Lemieux Institute. I love George Lemieux.
Yeah,
and
down at Palm Beach Atlantic University.
Yeah. And listen, he's among a Tom Gaines, a very pro-friendly DeSantis crowd. And he says, dude, I didn't use the word dude, but he says the GOP hasn't done anything. If they just get off their butts, he goes, and he got an applaud because even most Republicans think that the GOP hasn't done a lot. Listen to the clip.
But politics is cyclical. Politics is what have you done for me lately? Politics is anytime you rest on your laurels, something can happen very quickly. So I think the midterms nationally, there's obviously headwinds. You got to figure out ways to overcome it as Republicans. If I were advising people in Congress, I would say, well, one way you can maybe change the narrative is actually get off your rear ends and do something for a change because they're not doing very much. And hopefully we end up, maybe changing the narrative a little bit this November from where the national narrative is going vis-a-vis Republican.
Tom, he called it out. The national narrative is Republicans. Yeah,
it's a fact. So I'm going to give you 3 little anecdotes. One is Matt Schaap, when he was speaking at CPAC, said, do we want, and he was saying this rhetorically, do we want impeachments? And the crowd clapped. And he said, no, you don't understand. If we lose, we're going to get impeachments. And there was still a large clapping amongst the crowd. My point being, this is not the crowd we're talking to. the crowd we need to be messaging to are the NPAs, because they're going to decide in the November election. The problem is, I disagree with you and Lindsay on this one thing, that there's plenty of other news out there. No, there really isn't. The problem is the NPAs and the independents don't listen or don't read the tweets that we pay attention to. And so this all happens in an oxygen space that we're not really partisan with. But here's the other piece of the problem. The reason we can't get anything done is because the legislative session is the most minuscule legislative session in decades. In fact, Mike Johnson, believe it or not, there's less than 50 legislative days for the House between now and the election. They are not there in Washington, D.C. because they want to campaign. The problem is you can't get anything done. And the only thing that helped move things around the end of last week was the threat of a second reconciliation. It shouldn't be a threat. We already should have had a second reconciliation. We should have rammed this thing through with all the things we needed to get done, including the spending removal of the Department of Education, which is still floating out there. It's been gutted, but it's still on the books, which means unless we eliminate it legislatively, it will pop back up the next president. The problem is the legislative session has been an embarrassment. It's been a mockery, and it has not supported the president's agenda in one iota. The big, beautiful bill is junk. There's only a few things in it that really helped us. Everything else helped everyone else. And that's just not Republican. That's not small government conservative. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's why there's been a big disconnect between the base and what's happening in Washington, D.C.
All right. Ed Moore, I'll give you the last word.
Tom is exactly correct. And until that gets corrected, until D.C. starts doing something, I posted up just the other day, one man speaking, I'd love to see Rick Scott and Ashley Moody go back to D.C., sit down in that Senate and say, we're not leaving it here until we get come in with a list of things, 5 things. We're going to stay here until we get it done. Shame on the rest of them for going home and saying, oh, here, we're going to pass it and send it to the House. We're going to send it to No, quit the games. Get on an agenda and stick to it and get her done.
Well, every week you can catch these guys on the radio show. Dr. Ed Moore, who is the president emeritus at the Independent College Universities and great columnist at FloridaDaily.com, and Tom Gatens, his groups that he represents, like FreedomWorks and Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse. Tom and Ed, as always, I know I'll be talking to you during the week, brother. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Hey, great talk.
Yeah, man. Both of these guys. Let me bring back Lindsay here. Sorry, Lindsay. Anyway,
That's not Lindsay.
I can hang out with that. But anyway,
We just changed hairstyles real fast.
I know it's.
They're so great. They're very knowledgeable, but it scares me for the country. And I mean, I love our governor.
You know
And he's
scares
spot
me more?
on.
I understand where Democrats are at. It's
Yes.
my party.
Yes.
I know in my reality world where I want to go through with issues. If the Republican Party had an agenda like a contract with America, forget about it. Null and void. There is nothing there. And my biggest beef I have with Republicans is they always want to itch and complain all the time instead of getting things done. I get Social Security going to run out in the next, 5 to 6 years of 25% less payments. Instead, what are we going to do? We're going to blame the other side. No, we're not going to do anything about it.
Right.
So again, it's a conversation that you got to have. And when one side doesn't do it, then somebody's got to be the adult in the room here.
Yeah. Somebody's got to be able to do the hard work and take it on the chin and just get it done. And unfortunately, we don't have that.
That's right. Well, Lindsay Randall and that tiara. How do you like it? We'll do another edition coming up right here. FloridaDaily.com. Like us on our YouTube page, Google. We don't charge you. We don't ask for any money, no subscriptions. We are not like public broadcasting. We make our own money. We have to as well. So it's always good, and we'll continue to do it. The Florida Daily Show right here at FloridaDaily.com.